Hi, welcome to my show, It's All About You. I'm Joanne Schultz, and I'm a leadership coach. And tonight, I have with me Greg, and Greg is a junior in University, Santa Clara. And we're going to talk about what we need to talk about. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about what's on your mind so we can kind of go from there, give everybody the background, and then we'll figure it out.
I did a leadership workshop this past summer and found out a lot about myself and what I'd like to do with the rest of my life. And I'd like to get into leadership coaching and building organizations and helping people improve efficiency there. And I really found out different personality styles and how my vision of one at the beginning isn't exactly where I should be or my style, so how I can get to where I want to be.
Yeah, that's the should is very interesting about what you should be. But talk about, you had been through an assessment on your style. And what did you get? What were you, or are you?
Well, I went through the social styles, and I thought of myself always as a driver, meaning striving to get things done, no matter what, and really forgetting people in the process. But that's not who I am. And I realize that I'm more of an amiable person, caring about others. I'm doing my best to be able to be nice to others, but also accomplish things.
So that was a big aha for you to understand that you're a nice guy and likes people, and damn it, people like me, right?
Yeah.
But you consider it kind of an obstacle then to getting things done? Is that how you're looking at it?
Sometimes it's difficult for me when things need to be done to tell other people, hey, do this, or instead doing it in somewhat of a mean way where I forget about them and it's somewhat using them to get to an end.
So you flip then. You're either too directive or you're too nice?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So somewhere in the middle there is where you want to be?
Yeah.
So what kind of things from a leadership context did you learn about styles, about beneficial, which ones worked more? I mean, did they teach you anything about that whole how to use what you're good at, how to capitalize on that? Or
they said that the most important part is the versatility and being able to go through the styles. And fortunately, I scored pretty high on that. But I find myself often reverting to, driving when things need to be done, and I'm also stressed out.
Yeah, yeah. And that happens when people get stressed, is we sort of end up going to our own dark side, right? Even overplaying our strengths at times.
Yeah.
But a strength overdone, as they say, becomes a weakness. So what is the imperative for you? Why is it important right now for you to figure this out? Is it part of, course requirements? Is it part of what's going on in your life? What's the motivation behind this?
Well, I'm just always curious to find out more about who I am and how I can use that in my life to get to where I want to be professionally. Cool.
Yeah, very cool. You seem to be clear professionally, actually.
Thank you.
Or clear today. I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about maybe some tangible examples of where you're showing up, just so a little bit more background of where it works for you or it doesn't work for you. Because it must work for you sometimes to be who you are, and then there's times where it doesn't. Where are you concerned? Where's the area?
Well, fortunately, I've had a lot of experience in my fraternity, and we founded a chapter of Sigma Chi at Santa Clara.
Oh, wow.
And we now have almost 70 guys.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's huge.
So a lot of the time when we were founding, I found myself to be a driver, pushing too hard and not really knowing how to interact with the other people as a team instead of doing things just by myself. So I then was able to take the opportunity to be the pledge educator, and that was really comfortable for me, leading discussions, helping them figure out who they are and the values of the fraternity. So that's when I found myself to be amiable. But when it was coming to get people to do other things, get more involved, I was pushing very hard, and people got turned off by that idea.
And are these your peers that you were pushing hard? Whereas the educator piece were people who were not your peers?
Peers a year younger.
Oh, okay. That you're trying to entice to come into the organization?
Teaching them about the organization.
Oh, they already made a commitment, so now you're teaching them.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So what's coming up for you? Why, you know, what's your vision for how you want to be?
Great question.
Hard question, but
I'd like to be able to play to my amiable personality, but also be able to accomplish things through that.
right, right. So that's a really nice vision to hold. And what's in there is the discernment of when to apply your style situationally. So has it been positive? Do you have positive examples when being direct has helped?
Yeah. We just had a volleyball tournament in Louisville, Kentucky, and we ended up doing a lot better than the regular season. And there are some times when we're just down and without a coach, and being the team captain, you know, they need a little motivation, and sometimes you just have to get in there during a timeout and, you know, raise the voice and say, hey, let's pick this up. We know what we can do. Let's do it.
Right, right. So that's actually being very inspirational.
Okay.
Isn't it? Isn't that what
I
you were
guess
at
so.
those times?
Yeah.
But raising your voice make it seem like you're being more directive? Maybe you're both. So raising your voice, do you equate that with being directive?
Sometimes calling people out, I think that's being directive and giving them orders instead of letting them figure out how to do it themselves.
Right, yeah. So in business, one of the things that you'll hear said, and maybe you've already heard it, that business is all about relationships and work is about results. So have you heard that about business being about relationships?
I've heard that part.
Yeah. What does that mean for you?
It's really about the people who you're around and how you're able to keep relations with them and foster, your growth.
Right. And get things done. So you look at the way that you go about getting things done now when you're being the amiable guy. How do you do that?
That's been the trouble. I often find myself, not pushing hard enough to get things done. And when I see a vision or something like that, it could be done this way and, this would be ideal, but it's not up to that standard. Often I'll forget about the amiable self and push toward the driver's self and say, hey, it has to be this way. And that's where the fall comes in. Right.
People don't like to hear that.
Exactly.
So if we were to give you a middle style, if we were to add one more style to your tool belt, so we know you've got directive, and we know you have amiable, we know when you're stressed you default from amiable to directive. If we gave you something else in the middle there, what would that look like?
It would have those relationships that when it comes time to getting things done, the people know that. And through your personal relationships, you'd be able to say, hey, I feel like we could do this better.
Yeah.
How can I help?
Yeah, there you go. So that probably, I would say, is a collaborative stance. Let's just call it collaboration.
Okay.
So if I really wanted you to do something and you weren't, then I would leverage my relationship with you to get in there and see why it wasn't occurring, what we could figure out about removing the obstacle. So let's call that collaboration.
Okay.
So now think of a scenario. Maybe you have something coming up, something that's happened in the past, maybe some scenario we could just play with. Say, where you get a little bit stuck in how to actually make it happen, whatever it is. You can even make one up.
Well, we actually have an event tomorrow night for our philanthropy supporting cancer research. And it's going to be a peanut butter and jelly making competition.
Yay.
And we'll have sorority girls come over and we'll have a race to see who can make the most PB&Js in 10 minutes. So when it's tomorrow and we have the bread and the peanut butter, but we need the jelly and the tables and the bags for the PB&Js to go into. How do I make sure we're able to set that all up and still keep my cool?
So what time is the event?
It'll be at 6 o'clock.
So you've got between now and 6 o'clock. So what would you typically do?
Do everything myself.
Okay. Are there other people who have volunteered or assigned to do, so they have their responsibilities?
Yep.
And so what's happening with them?
Well, they're 3 really important guys, part of the scandalous committee, instead of the service board. You know, one of the guys came up with the idea of calling it the scandalous committee. So we just have fun with it, and, you know, fiesta on.
So you have about 24 hours to get the people who are supposed to do something with getting the bread and the jelly and the tables and all that there, and they know who they are. So have you been like lead coordinator on this whole thing?
Everyone's had their specific task, and these guys have done a great job. One of them went to NOAA's to ask for donations, and also went to the service office to see how we could donate sandwiches.
Right.
And then while this is going on, another guy's been heading up the whole philanthropy act, while another one is working on our Relay for Life, which also supports cancer research. So it would be more, how can we get the rest of the chapter involved?
Oh, okay. So first of all, I probably want to say, and I don't know if this is true in college land, but first of all, 24 hours before something's supposed to be executed is kind of last minute.
That's the way college is.
Yeah, okay. Just want to get clear on that. So, because one thing that people will do in business is, in order to foster accountability, they'll make agreements up front. So if you say, I'm going to do this by this time, that you have set it out ahead of time what the roles and responsibilities of people are, right? So now that you're in a compressed window, the same thing would still exist. Got to find people who are willing to do that, right? So you're going to be either doing it yourself, which is not exactly what your goal is,
right,
or figuring out who you can collaborate to help you get it done. Now, this is where your great relationship piece comes in. Because there are those people who will do for you because they have a great relationship with Greg. And those are the people that are immediately available to you.
Okay.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Can you think of who those people are?
Yeah.
You think in your head? So those are the people who you could say, I need a favor. Or, can you help me with this? I can't do it all myself. So there's those people.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can you imagine going to those people and asking? And would they?
Yeah.
So those people automatically are your allies.
Okay.
And that's where, thank God, you have great relationships. That's how that works. Those are the same people that forgive you when you screw up. You know?
Yeah.
They let you, right? Now there's the other people who maybe haven't even been pulled in on it.
Right.
But you could still use the same technique in collaborating in your relationship with them to ask them to step up.
Okay.
So you're not telling them what to do. And if they say no, and you can, then you're into, well, what are the obstacles here, right? Because some people say, no, I just can't, I don't want to, whatever. So the people who are easiest to coach into delegation, which is sort of what you're talking about at the core, if you make it a business term, it's delegating,
Okay.
are the people who want to, whether they know how to or not. So you want to find the people who want to.
Okay.
Because they're okay. They either like peanut butter and jelly, or they like you, or they like the event, or they want to do it for the fraternity, or they believe in the fundraising. They have their reasons. But the people who want to, even if they don't know, they're the ones that go, well, what do you need me to do, Greg? Those are the people you want first. The people that you love are the people that are, I can do it and I will. Just tell me what you need and it's all done. Those are the first people, right? Those are your friends. Those are your relationships. Second one are the people who will. The people who are the hardest are the ones who can help, but they don't want to. And you will always have those people. And with those people, because they know how to, but they just don't want to, you have to figure out what is of interest for them. And the only way to find that out is to ask them. So what would it make it worth your while to like be in charge of getting 5 tables here? You have to buy me a beer, you know, whatever.
Of course.
Of course, right? So there's collaboration in the midst of these extremes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the kind of the matrix I just painted for you, you can think about in terms of ability and desire.
Right.
Always go after desire first. Find those people. Because you can always build skill.
Right.
It's much harder to build desire.
And how do you build that skill?
Well, if they don't know, I mean, skill is like you fill in the content. You probably have to teach. Like people say, yeah, you know what, I'd love to get you 5 tables, but how? You know, like what do you do? And you may know all about renting tables or where they're stored or whatever all that is. So you may have to teach them a process.
Okay.
You know, kind of like you did with the educator role that you did.
Of course.
You fill it in, right? Whatever that needs to be filled in. So that's one way to look at it.
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's good. So if you were doing it, so you're in compressed time. So you'll probably leave here, get on your phone, and start sending out to people, hey, I need a favor.
Right.
Right? And you can approach them that way. And then there's people who you can even dig back on, you helped last time. Would you mind this time? Or you mentioned that you love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Can you help?
Yeah. Okay.
So go for your relationships.
Of course.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So we got that one kind of framed.
Yeah.
So if you flipped it to a business context, the business context would be, how do you make agreements with people up front about division of responsibility? And I think, when you do that, you always go for the obstacle. So if you said, I wanted you to bring peanut butter and jelly itself, and you are like, I can't. I got a final tomorrow. I have to sleep in till 11, and then I have to take a shower, and then I have to go to class, and then I have to whatever. Then in there is an obstacle to be removed. I can't remove it because I don't know your obstacles. It's not mine to remove, but I could look at it with you. So what would it take for you to get the peanut butter and jelly? And then you'll tell me. Well, I guess I could get up at 10:30, or not, right?
Right.
So I would just think in terms of collaboration in the middle.
Okay.
So leverage your strength. So now you have something really important coming up in your life in the fraternity.
Yeah, they just elected me as president. So next year, it'll be our 3rd year as a fraternity, so we have a lot of vision setting and action to take place.
Yeah. How exciting is that? Are you looking forward to it?
You bet.
So what's enticing about this role?
Being really involved from the beginning and seeing how I've grown through this process. I think that there are a lot of strengths which I could use to, help out the chapter and really work with the chapter to see where do you guys want to take this and make sure that we do those things. Which
is Kuz's and Posner's The Leadership Challenge, which you just had a test on today.
You bet.
That book is a great book. What are their theories? What's that after?
This one would be Inspire Shared Vision.
Yeah. And so how are you going to go about doing that?
Really allow other people to take action. And I think the executive members, what they call the top guys in the fraternity, those are the key players right now for us, because if they know how to lead a discussion, we could find out through small discussion groups what that average brother wants to do, and then make an outline and put those things into action. So that is straight on collaboration. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
This will be good practice for you.
You bet.
So how are you going to manage holding people accountable?
That was my next question.
Yeah. What have you thought would be an ideal for you?
I think by having this process where everyone is able to take part, that will increase activity and brotherhood and transparency within the fraternity. But like you said, accountability for that, how does that work? And you were mentioning earlier pulling people aside and finding out, well, what's in it for you, finding out who they are. And that those one-on-one relationships will be really important for this.
Well, and if they're a part of your vision, if they're a part of building the vision, that would then create some buy-in, wouldn't it?
Right.
Right. So when you think about the peanut butter and jelly event, were there people involved in the vision of that event in the planning that helped create the buy-in?
Yeah.
And if you come to an event and you're struggling, then I would back into, did they get involved in the vision? Right? So if I come up to you and go, hey, can you bring peanut butter and jelly tomorrow? And you're like, okay, but for what? How come? Why are you asking me now? Then evidently I wasn't in it beforehand.
Right.
So it's a kind of a way looking more long-term at your process. So is there a forum that you'll have to actually do this visioning with people?
Yep.
Before you start school next year?
Yeah.
And so people get to talk about what they want it to be like?
Exactly.
So you've watched past presidents do this?
They actually ended up doing it while I was abroad. And the chapter said it was a really good experience for them to share what they wanted to do.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And did they actualize some of it?
Some of it, but there's been a lot of apathy. And it's really hard to involve people when not everyone's involved in the vision.
Right. So setting realistic expectations will be important.
Exactly.
Because it sounds like, I mean, you've just talked about so many events just now. And then you talk about the other scandalous committee guys and all the things that they're also involved in. That people you have group projects, then people have pet projects? Is that kind of how that's going?
Kind of, yeah.
That's a lot of action.
You bet.
So you might want to look at that. How can you support individual goals that people have for philanthropy or involvement? And then how do you also align it potentially with what the fraternity is deciding to do?
Okay.
I think that's why people streamline when you get down to it, right?
Right.
They pick their certain charities because there's just so much going on.
Right.
Yeah. So what obstacles are left for you? What do you think is in your way?
In college, people wait till the last minute to do things, myself included. And we're just also busy. So how do we make sure that we make time for fraternity? I see that as a major obstacle.
Yeah, yeah. So there's an organizational piece in there that's kind of like about streamlining. Not organization like group, like streamlining. That's in there. So you might have to think about time management a little bit.
Right.
And then there seems to be something in there about how do you engage people early.
Exactly.
Which we've talked about. You know, you've heard of the Pareto principle, right?
No.
Or you heard of the 80-20 rule? 80% in planning, 20% in execution.
Okay.
Maybe the last minute
Makes
thing
sense.
needs more time in planning.
Right.
Because it isn't the execution.
Okay.
But it all feels like execution when there
Right.
isn't enough planning.
Right.
Yeah, so the planning would be who's going to do what by when, and then finding out what obstacles are to people doing that.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of... So if you know that you operate in a culture that's like that, and I tell you, it'll be the same when you get out in the work world. Everybody has a culture.
Right.
This culture is last minute. And everybody's busy. Well, you know what? That exists all over the place too.
Right.
So the planning piece will become really significant. Because then you're holding people accountable to the relationship with you and what they said they would do.
Okay.
So if I let you down and didn't get your peanut butter and jelly, then that would be a bummer for our relationship.
Right.
Not really so much about the peanut butter and jelly.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
That makes sense.
A little different frame on that.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad you just read the Leadership Challenge too, because it talks about the human side, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And that's your strength, right?
Thanks. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It evidently is your strength. And way back in the beginning of this conversation, you said about what you should be like. What is what's left in there? Anything in there about what you should be like?
I think it's just the execution of it. Have that planning so when the time comes around, and it is a stressful event, being able to reach out to those people who, are in the close circle and ask them for favors.
Yeah. I also think, too, that you probably want to go easy on yourself about execution and stress. If you can just even notice, I'm stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So my inclination is to go up and go, hey, do this, right? Then you might reframe that to say, God, Joanne, I know I'm waiting to the last minute, but I didn't get around to asking you to get peanut butter and jelly. Could you do it now?
Right.
And just own it.
Okay.
And this is stressing me out. So that you don't necessarily have to be who you're not.
Okay.
So there's some self-management. You know how we were talking about emotional intelligence and the self-management?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Awareness. And then you have a choice. I can do what I do. I can tell Joanne, just go get the peanut butter and jelly.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can just come clean and say, hey, we had an agreement you were going to get this. What's in your way? Or I'm stressed and I need your help.
You got it.
So you have choices. More forks in the road,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So any last comment? Anything you want to say?
No.
We have to wrap it up.
Very helpful.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Good. What are you going to do? What's one thing you're going to do differently?
Make a phone call right after this. Saying, I waited till the last minute. Would you be able to help out and go to Costco for me?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being a guest.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and good luck. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And we'll stay tuned. Maybe we can have Greg come back and tell us how it's going as being leader of the frat. All right. Good night. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.